Porca troia! Torna. A powerful storm system was battered much of Europe, leaving a trail of destruction, transport, chaos and a human tragedy in this way. The storm, which brought hurricane-force wind, torrential rain and heavy snowfall in high areas, has affected countries such as France, Germany, Poland, Austria and Balkans. In a Paris, wind knocked down trees and damaged roofs, while trains and flights were delayed. In Bavaria, Germany, hail and strong gas battered small towns, breaking windows and damaged vehicles. The Netherlands reported severe coastal flooding as waves to 6-meter high hit dikes and pots. Authorities confirmed at least a dozen fatalities across the continent, including drivers caught in the flash flooding and persistence stuck by fallen debris. Hundreds of thousands of homes were left without power overnight, and emergency service received thousands of calls. Witnesses described terrified conditions. The roof of our town was lifted up and a few away in the way paper said, now walking the South Poland. In Austria, sky reports were cut off by avalanches, trapped tourists and the staff.
Mira. Corte para acá.
The storm also suffered the European transport network. Rail service hit in Germany and France suffered severe disruption, while airport in Milan, Brussels and Prague experienced significant delay. Trucks were banned from the driving in some area Italy due to dangerous crosswalks. Meteorologists warn that climate change may be felt to intensify of this storm. We are seeing more frequent and violent weather events across Europe, said Dr. Hans Keller, a climate scientist in Berlin. European leaders pledged to carry off rapid relief force. France deployed military engineers to clear blocked roads, while Germany announced emergency funds to support reconstruction efforts. EU officials trusted to need a get continental cooperation to deal with the climate-related disaster. For millions of people across Europe, this storm was not just a night to extreme weather, but another stark reminder of the continent's growing vulnerability to the fury of nature. A violent storm has battered Germany, causing strong winds, torrential rain and widespread disruption north from the North Sea to Bavaria. The system, one of the most intense of the season, was uprooted trees, torn off roofs and left hundreds of thousands of people without power. In Hamburg and Bremen, storm surge flooded riverside neighborhoods and emergency crews rushed to build buried as the Elbe River overflowed. In Berlin, fallen trees blocked major roads in the train lines, forcing communities to find alternative routes. Munich International Airports reported more than 100 cancelled flights, while trains in Bavaria and Saxony were halted due to the debris in tracks. Authorities confirmed multiple fatalities, including driver crushed by the fallen trees and the rescue workers swept away by the floodwaters. Dozens of people were injured by many debris flying through the city center. Hospital reported an increase in emergency admissions overnight. Residents described the storm as apocalyptic. The wind sounded like a freight train outside my window. We were building and the shaking, said Anne Miller, a resident of Berlin.
Je m'excuse, il y a une tempête derrière nous là.
Farmers in Lower Saxony reported devastation, losers in their crops and greenhouses, and about destroyed it. Insurance experts warned that the damage could be cost millions, placing in additional body and economy elderly and person. Germany Chancellor Olaf Scholz expressed condolences of the family to the victims and promised swift federal aid. "We stand together in the face of this catastrophe," he said, adding the climate adaptation must become a national priority. Meteorologists warn the storm and the magnitude may become more frequent as a warning season to call unstoppable weather across North Europe. At a time, rescue operations continue in flooded town in the mountains valley, with the soldiers, firefighters and volunteers working side by side. For many Germans, in storm will be remembered not only the force but a stark reminder of the growing risk of climate change. The Spanish region of Valencia has been hit by a severe storm that has brought torrential rain, violent winds and severe flooding, leaving streets submerged and continues gradually to recover. Meteorologists sent a system pellet the Mosul by Mediterranean dumped more than 200 mm of rain in just 24 hours, one of the most intense downpour in decades. Entire neighborhoods in the city of Valencia were left underwater, and the residents were forced to wade through waist-deep water. Emergency service carried out hundreds of rescue, including drivers trapped in submerged cars and families evacuated from ground floor apartments. At least 4 fatalities have been confirmed, while dozens of people have been injured by falling debris and traffic incidents. The part of Valencia, one of the barriers in Europe, was temporarily closed after crane that knocked down by strong winds disrupted shipments across the Mediterranean. Public transport was brought in a standstill, subway lines were suspended, flights were diverted, and rail services were cancelled throughout the region. Schools were ordered to close. Authority urged residents to stay indoors. Witnesses described a terrifying scenes. It was like a river rushing down by our streets. Cars were flooding and shops' windows collapsing in a matter of minutes, said Joe Martinez, a shop owner in central Valencia. Farmers in the surrounding area reported catastrophic losses with the citrus grove and the rice fields devastation of the flood. Local authorities have declared a state of emergency, and the Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez was pledged immediate assistance. The government stands with Valencia, will rebuild and support all families affected. Experts warn that climate change is intensifying. Extreme weather events in the Mediterranean were warnings increasing the risk in torrential rain and flash floods in Valencia. The storm has left a trail of destruction and urged questions about preparedness of the storm to come. Communities across Europe are in shock after a series of rare and powerful tornadoes swept through the parts of Germany, France and Czech Republic, leaving widespread destruction in their wake. Authorities have confirmed numerous casualties and more than 200 injured, with the homes destroyed, cars overturned and power lines down it. Western Germany was the hardest hit, with the powerful wind which swept throughout the residential area, poured down, injured dozens of people and damaged hundreds of buildings. Roofs were turned off, trees were uprooted and debris was scattered across highways. It was like a fire train rushing throughout the city, said Catherine Miller, who took shelter in a basement with their family. In northern France, a tornado struck near Bavaria, Calais overturned tracks on the A18 motorway and forcing several paths to close. Residents are decided chaos in the hail, lightning and stone-swing battered cities already drenched in the heavy rain. The Czech Republic still resilient from the devastation tornado in 2021, reported another several storm in southern Bavaria, where homes and farms again destroyed it. Emergency service rushed to help stranded residents and volunteers working through the night to clear debris from narrow rural streets. Meteorologists say the tornadoes formed after the mist of hot Mediterranean air collided with a cold front moving from the Arctic, creating unstable conditions ideal to supercell storms. Experts warn that the climate change could make Europe more vulnerable to such rare but devastating events. Tornadoes were once considered almost impossible here, explained climatologist Dr. Helena Novak. Now they are becoming a dangerous new reality. The infrastructure of the three countries suffered serious damage. Rail service was suspended, tens of thousands of people were left without power due to power outage, and schools were closed to several regions. Insurance companies estimate the damage in the hundreds of millions of euros. Despite the devastation, there are stories of resilience. Neighbors farmed human change of cleared debris, firefighters rescued trapped families, and the shelters opened their doors to lose their homes. As Europe begins the long process of recovery, the tornado several stuck reminded that extreme weather is no longer confined to remote regions. It now processes to grow through to here to the continent. Rome was hit a sudden and violent hailstorm that turned cobbled streets into the city rivers and stricken residents. The storm, which hit during the evening rush hour, brought golf-sized ball hailstones, torrential rain and strong winds of the city caused significant disruption and damage. Within minutes, major thoroughfares such as Via del Corso were covered in ice, bringing traffic at standstill. Cars were damaged, white ships were shattered, and motorcyclists were forced to abandon their vehicles. It was like a bombardment, stones from the sky, said Marco DeSantis, who took shelters in the cafe where the storm reached. Public transport were paralyzed, several metro stations were flooded, and tram service were suspended. At Fiumicino Airport, flights were delayed after the runway were covered with slush and ground strength rushed to clear the debris. The city's historic landmark also suffered significant damage from the storm. Tourists took shelter under the arches of Colosseum and up-pelted its antient area to layers into ice accumulated steps to Spanish stamps and Pisa, Venezia. Emergency service rushed to protect archaeological sites, fearing the water seepage could damage the fragile structures. Hospitals reported dozens of injuries, mostly from the slippers on the ice sidewalks or being stuck on fallen bridges. Power outage left thousands of homes in darkness. In the flash floods inundated underground parking lots of basements in low-lying areas such as Testorial and Toscana. Meteorologists explained that the storm formed that the warm Mediterranean air collided with the cold front moving south from northern Europe, creating strong updrafts that caused unusually late hailstorms. Experts warn that due to climate change, such extreme weather events are becoming more frequent and intense throughout Italy. A powerful wave of hailstorm has battered several parts of Europe, leaving communities struggled with the damage, disruption and shock. The severe weather-struck countries including Italy, France, Germany and Switzerland were hailstorm the size of a golf ball. In the same areas, even larger fell in devastation force. In northern Italy, vineyards in Lombardy and Veneto were shattered, with the farmers reported crops losers of up to 18%. It's heartbreaking, said vineyard Gula Benager, surrounding the roof of destroyed vines. A whole year work lost in 15 minutes. France also suffered widespread chaos. In Lyon and Dijon, streets turned white into hail blanket cars and blocked drains, causing sudden flash floods. Motorways were brought in standstill, and authorities reported dozens of incidents, and drivers struggled with the ice conditions. In southern Germany, roofs were smashed and a window shattered, particularly in Bavaria, where emergency crews responded to thousands of calls within hours. The Italian city of Palermo was left in shock after the severe storm swept through the Sicilian capital, bringing torrential rain, hurricane-force winds and flash floods that paralyzed the city. Within hours, streets turned into raging rivers, swept away across the trapped residents in their homes. Emergency services were inundated with a call, rescued dozens of people from flooded cars in the basement. It was like a waterfall rushing throughout the streets, said a local shopkeeper. Describe it now if the store was destroyed in minutes. Hospitals reported an influx of patients suffering from the injured and hypothermia. Authorities confirmed several casualties, and thousands of people were left without power as the power lines collapsed under the weight of fallen trees. The city's historic districts, usually bustling with the tourists, were eerily empty as residents hid in their homes. The storm also disrupted vital infrastructure. Palermo airport temporarily suspended flights, and ferry services were halted due to wave crashed onto the coast. In rural area around the city, farmland was destroyed, onto olive groves and vineyards were flooded, raising fears of significant losses to agriculture. Meteorologists said the storm was intensified by the warm water of the Mediterranean Sea, which follow unstable air masses. Conditions likely to the border effects of the climate change. Italy's Civil Protection Agency warned that extreme weather conditions are becoming the new normal, and they called to mandate investment to flood protection and the early warning system. Local authority declared a state of emergency, and the government promising to allocate funds to deal with the aftermath of the national disaster. Volunteers joined to brigade the police to clear blocked roads, but recovery expected to take weeks to even months. Europe is riddled after the wave of powerful storms swept across the continent, bringing hurricane-force wind, torrential rain, hail and flooding from Spain to Poland. Authorities have confirmed dozens of fatalities and hundreds of injured, with hundreds of thousands of households remain without electricity. In France, Paris, and hammered by heavy rain, is a lighting force to close the metro lines and grounded flights to Charlie the airport. Streets and Lyon and Bordeaux turned into rivers. An emergency crew reported more than 5,000 clouds overnight. Germany also brought to breath with a tornado-like wind North Rhine-Westphalia, ripping roofs to homes and uprooted trees. Rail service were suspended, highways blocked, and the school closed to official urged residents to stay indoors. It felt like the sky exploded, said Jens Fischer, with so calls lifted to overturned by sudden gusts. In Italy, Venice and Milan were swept by the flash floods, while the Rome enduring the violent hailstorm that shattered windows and damaged cars. Authorities warned to rising river levels in the north, in the fear of further flooding in the Po Valley. Spain forcing massive coastal swells and lightning storms, particularly in Barcelona and Valencia, where the Poland and Czech Republic struggled with the power cuts and transportation shutdowns after gale force winds across Central Europe. Airports across the continent suffered several days while thousands of travelers were stranded with the train station. Insurance provider estimates that the damage could reach billions of euros after gale force winds across the Central Europe. Airports across the continent suffered several days with thousands of Mediterranean said the storm system was following the coastal line by Mediterranean air called Atlantic Front, creating a volatile chain reaction across the Europe. Scientists the climate change is making such extreme wide-reaching weather events increasingly frequent.
回来，鱼竿呢？我操！
Italy is facing a major crisis after catastrophic floods swept through the parts of the country, with Sicily and Tuscany bearing the burst of devastation. Torrential rain over the past week was causing rivers to overflow, triggering landslides, and left entire communities underwater. The flood, described as some of the worst in recent memory, have claimed lives, displaced thousands, and caused widespread damage to infrastructure and homes. In Sicily, the relentless rainstorm had left widespread flooding across urban and rural area alike. In the island capital Palermo, streets have turned into rivers, with the cars submerged and many residents forced to evacuate. Catania, another major city, has also been severely affected, with widespread damage reported in a historic center. The floods have overwhelmed the drainage system, leaving emergency services struggling to keep with the demand to rescue operations. Many people have been trapped in their homes, and helicopters have been destroyed to relieve residents from isolated areas.
Wow. 卷风啊，好厉害啊！
Several music festivals and outdoors events were cancelled, leaving thousands and visitors stranded in makeshift shelters. Switzerland too reported significant damage. In Zurich and Lorentz, public transport was suspended as a hail closed rail lines and flooded tram tunnels. Airways saw delays, where insurers prepared for the decided one of the most expensive summer storms in recent years. Hospitals across affected countries treated hundreds of injured from cuts of barriers and the most serious trauma caused by the fallen debris. Power outage hit tens of thousands of homes, while schools and businesses closed in the hardest hit regions. Meteorologists explained that the storm was triggered by the collisions of humid Mediterranean air with the cold northern winds, producing intense supercells capable of generating giant hail. Scientists warn such events are becoming more frequent as Europe warns. We are seeing a climate shift, say climatologist Dr. Eva Schinder. Storms like these, once rare, are now growing through it. Despite the disruption, communities are relevant. Volunteers cleared streets of ice, neighborhood shade through fruits, and the standard travels and the emergency crew worked tirelessly to restore power. As Europe begin counting the cost and a hailstorm severe as another stark reminder of nature growing volatility and the urgent need to resilience in the efforts of climate experts. Italy is grappling with a severe flooding after days of relentless rain, particularly affected with the northern regions of the country. Torrential downpour have caused rivers to swell, boost their banks, and inundate towns and villages. This latest episode of flooding has left authorities struggling to cope with the growing crisis, with thousands of people evacuated from their homes. The region of Emilia-Romagna, Lombardy, and Veneto have been among the hardest hit. In Emilia-Romagna, widespread damage to infrastructure have been reported, with the roads submerged, bridges washed away, and homes flooded. Several rivers, including the Po, the Angel, have reached critical levels, forced emergency services to respond rapidly to prevent further damage. The situation has been compounded by landslides in hilly areas, blocked roads, and isolated communities. In Venice, the city is too familiar to high water levels. Flood definitions will put the test. The iconic Moss barriers, designed to protect the city with the rising tides, were activated shelters to mitigate the Venice from the significant damage. However, other areas in the region were not so fortunate. Many towns and villages in Veneto region saw extensive flooding, with the residents forced to fare the high ground. Several European countries are assessing the damage after severe hailstorm swept across the continent, leaving a trail of destruction from France and Italy to Germany, Austria and Switzerland. The storm intensified the unstoppable air masses that collided over Central Europe, produced hailstones the size of a tennis ball that mashed a car, damaged roofs and injured hundreds of people. In northern Italy, cities in Lombardy and Veneto saw streets covered in ice and hospitals treated dozens and partying for cars in a heat injury caused by broken glass. In Bavaria, Germany, cars were left covered in dents and vineyards suffered catastrophic damage. It was like bombing, saying Hans Killer, a farmer's near Munich. In 10 minutes, our entire harvest were destroyed. Austria, also facing chaos in emergency service, responded to collapsed roofs and blocked highways. In Switzerland, tourists in Lorenz and Alps scalped dramatic footage in hailstones, spilled it up like snowdrifts, transformed summer landscape in winter owns. Flights in Zurich and Geneva airports were delayed and cancelled after hail damaged parked planes. Meteorology said the storm was caused by the collisions between the Mediterranean air and the cold northern front, exacerbating the recorded summer heat across Europe. Scientists warn that climate change is contributed to more frequent and destructive hailstorms, adding the continent growing climate-related problems. Agriculture has been hit hardest, heat damaged estimates of hundreds and millions of euros. Vineyard, orange and cornfield across Central Europe has been destroyed, threatening both in local economy and a food supply chain. Insurance companies are already preparing for one of the most expensive weather events in the year. Government has promised to provide assistance and clean up on the aftermath and the initial disaster by sending soldiers in rural Iraq to clear roads and protect damaged homes from the further rain. However, for the many residents, the storm was stuck remaining in the increasing severity of extreme weather events. A severe storm hit Sicily, Italy, caused heavy rain, strong winds and widespread flooding in several cities including Palermo and Catania. The extreme weather events, which struck without warning, turned streets into rivers, disrupted transportation and left thousands of residents without electricity and with damaged property. Local authority issued several weather warnings on the island who received rainfall significantly above the seasonal average. Videos show a dramatic scene where, posted on social media, cars submerged into water, people waist deep water in the floodwaters, and emergency service trying to reach stranded cities. Meteorologists report that the storm deployed rapidly over the Mediterranean Sea under the influence of low pressure system combined into high sea surface temperature, and a phenomenon that is becoming increasingly common due to climate change. Madrid has been plunged into chaos after a powerful storm swept across the Spanish capital, bringing torrential rain, gale force winds and flash flooding that left entire neighborhoods underwater. In just few hours, more than a month was in rain, overwhelming drainage and transformed streets into fast-flowing rivers. Cars were swept away, metro station flooded, and power lines collapsed, plunged parts of the city in darkness. It was terrified, said Lauza Fernandez, a shop assistant who was received from the stranded car. The water rose so quickly, I thought I would make it out alive. Authority confirmed several fatalities and dozens of injured. Hundreds of residents were evacuated from basements in low-lying homes, and emergency service working around the clock, often wading chest deep through the floodwaters. Public transportation suffered severe disruption. Madrid metro network were particularly shut, while train and buses forced long delays. Barajas International Airport suspended flight for several hours, stranded passenger amidst scenes of confusion. Tourists were also caught in the chaos, with landmarks like Puerta del Sol and Plaza Major submerged. Videos shared online showed hailstones bouncing across historic squares and water pouring down the steps of the Prada Museum. In surrounding region, farmland was badly hit, vineyards and olive groves were inundated just weeks before harvest, threatening significant agricultural losers. Economists warned the storm's financial toll could run into hundreds of millions euros. Meteorologists explained that the storm was triggered by a clash between humid Mediterranean air cold Atlantic front intensified by record summer heat. Experts warn that climate change is increasing to frequency such extreme weather events across Spain, already one of Europe's most climate vulnerable nations.